Hi there, Let's Talk Sports fans. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Let's Talk New York Sports, and I'm joined by my co-host Keith Engle from TGI Sports Talk. How you doing today, Keith?
I am doing well, Dan. It's great to be with you as always. Fridays are my favorite day of the week because there's nothing to do till Monday except have fun and, well, work on a new house, I guess. But great to be with you because we get to talk some New York sports and there's always lots going on. So it's always fun.
Yep, same here. We've got a lot to talk about today. And before we do, how did your show with Carlos go earlier? And are you serious? Fun time as always?
Oh, we had a good time this morning and almost on the same page on a lot of cases. We kind of reviewed the takeaways from the Mets and Yankees series. We kind of reviewed the NBA and NHL champions and whether we thought the best teams in the league actually won those. And we talked D. Hopkins and where he may end up in his visit with the Patriots this week, which I'm sure we'll chat a little bit about today. So we got into all those and more.
Yeah, we definitely will. And this is the best time to say everyone go support what Keith does over at TGR Sports Talk, both the Facebook page and subscribe to the YouTube and maybe comment, say hi, found you through Let's Talk Sports. The more comments helps the algorithm, which means more sports fans can find Keith, and I know he would appreciate it.
Certainly appreciate that from you and anybody who stops by. And same with LTS, Let's Talk Sports. Do that because Dan's done a great job of promoting not just my shows, but all the other shows on his network, which is growing leaps and bounds. So I'm proud to be part of that.
Thanks for that, Keith. And talking of the relationship built, I want to give a shout out to our mutual friend Alan. I've been texted the photo. Alan met up with Tanner, of course, from Sports Buffoon. So that's nice to, as I always say, online connections, creating real life connections. That's the biggest compliment that you can pay LTS, far bigger than any views we could get.
Good for them. Good for them. Good to hear that.
Yeah. So Keith, we don't often start with Buffalo, but there's been a bit of drama in Buffalo with Mr. Diggs. I'm sure you've got some views on this. It doesn't surprise me. And well, nothing surprises me in the NFL, but with Stephen Diggs particularly, what's your viewpoint on this?
You know, am I shocked? No, it seems like every wide receiver in the NFL is a diva. This is not really his first endeavor down this road. And I think once Sean McDermott expressed his displeasure, it was interesting that Stefan showed up the next day. So probably much ado about nothing. You know, this is him and there's video yesterday of him and good grief, how can I forget the quarterback's name? Help me.
Josh Allen.
Yes, I'm having a senior moment here for crying out loud. I got Hopkins in my head. That's all I keep hearing. Yeah, they obviously were, together fine. They hooked up and, it's practice. It's OTAs. It's not the biggest issue in the world, but it doesn't set a great tone, and what's really an important year for the Bills. So Stefan needs to get on the same page here and stop being me, like a lot of these wide receivers seem to be.
It's interesting. This has shades of how Minnesota ended to
Yeah.
me, and
Yeah.
it's one of those. You saw this, I'm sure you noticed it in the games as well. Stefan's frustrations during the season. I do feel some of it is maybe the play calling wasn't ticking as much, but the biggest thing is they had high expectations. We talked about that last year, and it didn't really match up to that. And I think in his head it was Josh Allen's fault. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that's the case, but he would either have to look at the quarterback or maybe himself a little. If you look at what he's being paid and how much, to coin a UK phrase, he's a bit of a big time Charlie. Well, if you want to play with diva, at least put in the diva's performance. So he is by far the biggest name receiver in that offense. So how about he puts some performances in? So I'm not. I think they're just going to have to be with adults in the room, even if they agree to move on down the road. It's not going to happen now. I really can't see it. So I think it may be a case of let's put a head down, our windows getting smaller, and we will address any problems at the end of the season.
Yeah, he can blame Josh Allen, whether it's in his head or out loud, but
Yeah,
he disappeared when the Bills struggled last year. He disappeared like a lot of those guys did on that team, and
yeah,
that just can't happen. So not when you're making the money he made, as you alluded to, 70 million guaranteed, and they're stuck with each other, right? It's not like they can trade him because the dead cap space would kill this team. So they're stuck with each other.
yeah. I agree. I mean, he was the display put on against the Jets where he was getting frustrated by Reed and
Mhm.
Sauce Gardner. It was pathetic, thumping the ground. I mean, um, he doesn't really have that rap, even though he's got history of throwing his toys out the pram. I don't think people call him out on it. Like people, like I think he's possibly a little more um spoiled than Odell, but Odell has a massively bad rap, and in some cases that's deserved. But it's not just this year. If you just watch his body language during some of the games where he's struggling a little, it's not good. So I would like to see a bit of leadership from him. But the issue what he has is in his head. I think he's a top three receiver, and in reality, he's a very good receiver, but not quite that top tier guy. But I think he feels he is. So I think that causes some of his frustration at times.
Yeah, listen, I agree. And as far as his rep and not seemingly as bad as say Odell, you got to remember uh, he hasn't played in some of the largest media markets
Yeah,
in the world either, which has probably kept him off that radar just a little bit.
I do agree. Keith, when all said and done, do you feel this just gets pushed aside for now? And do you feel do you think there's a way he can be in Buffalo in the longer term rather than short term?
I think it will get pushed aside a little bit because once you start getting out there and he starts getting the football and they start winning football games, it'll all get forgotten. And they are going to be long term partners. They've guaranteed this guy $70 million on this $104 million extension he signed just last off season, and at least for the next couple of years, I don't see how they can afford to part ways with him. So I think they're as I said before, I think they're stuck with each other for better or worse.
I do agree with that. Yeah, their receiver core is Finn doesn't do it justice without him, so both sides need to do this. And to be honest with you, Josh Allen does to a certain degree as well, because his success relies on Diggs and vice versa. So
For
that
sure.
contract isn't movable either. So
Nope.
um, I'm intrigued to see if this gets better or worse as the season goes on.
It's funny you mentioned the wide receiver core being a little weak. It was just a year ago, and the previous two seasons we were talking about how deep They were. It seemed like every week somebody that we hardly knew of stepped up and had a huge game. But that's all those guys have kind of regressed a little bit. So that's why you're right. Diggs is much more important to this team than maybe they'd like to admit.
I agree, and some of that is the loss of Brian Dogle. He was given these receivers, and
Mm.
not just receivers, by the way, to play up and over themselves. And it's not too late. The new coaching staff haven't really done that, but that's not to say that they won't. We will see, but it's going to be interesting because he's very much had it his own way in this division the last few years, but I feel this division could be a pressure cooker, so I'm intrigued to see how he handles that this year, if it's as competitive as we think it will be.
Yeah, I still think it'll be very competitive. So
Yeah.
it will be interesting to see what happens here. And I think there's more pressure on the Bills than maybe anybody in this division. Of course, the Jets have some pressure, obviously, but I think the Bills might have more than anybody because of where they've been and where they have not gotten to.
Yeah, I agree, and it's interesting. With the Jets, at least you can say, and I don't think it will be this case, but if the wheels fall off, you can say, oh, well, it's the Jets, it's what they do.
Okay.
Whereas the Bills are someone they've got rid of that tag of when they were struggling.
Yeah.
People expect excellence from them, so someone may have to pay the price if they don't reach their goals, because last year it was disappointing and they really got free pass based on the last couple of seasons. But you've got to say, if they failed to hit their goals this year, then maybe the head coach, maybe if not gone, sort of on a bit of a hotter seat.
Oh, I agree. You know, we talked about this being one of the, if not one of the, maybe the best division in football, but it's very interesting. I mean, you look at all four teams and you can say that all of them are kind of at a crossroads. As good as they can all be, each team has got their little issue where you can say, this year, this is a year that they've got to make good, or you know, it's not going to. Things could change a lot the next year with every team.
Yeah, I agree. I'm gonna be intrigued to see this now. We reference DeAndre Hopkins last week. Nothing's really happened too much, but how you feeling, Keith? Because according to reports, it's a straight choice between the Patriots and the Titans.
I like my chances in that decision making. They had him in here the last 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday. By all accounts, you know, the meetings went very, very well. There's a lot of mixed reports about the money that he's looking for, and with only two teams in it, you know, the money's not. He's not getting $18 million. It's unlikely he's going to get $14 million. I've heard as low as $8 million. With the Cowboys out and some of these other teams that could bid this up a little bit. If this is a straight competition between the Titans and the Patriots, I think the Patriots have as good a chance to win this, better chance of winning this than I would have said 2 weeks ago. People want to talk up the Bill O'Brien side of this. To me, I think it's a non-factor. The head coach is what matters here. A relationship that he had with Bill O'Brien in the past when he was the head coach. It's quite a few years ago now. These guys have all been through a lot of stuff since then. They have a different work relationship as a coordinator and a head coach are not the same relationship with a player. And him and Bill Belichick have a bit of a bromance going. So I like their chances to bring him in at a reasonable price besides. So, and he's huge. It's another, bringing him in for the Patriots is really big for Mac Jones because, as I just talked about, players at a crossroads, they've got, and teams at a crossroads, they have to make a decision on Mac Jones, whether he's the quarterback of the future this year, because they got to make a decision on his fifth-year option at the end of this season. and they need to give him the weapons so that they can truly evaluate whether he's their quarterback going forward, which I think he will be. And this will help uh, both the team and Mac Jones show that that's going to be the case. And listen,
Yeah,
he's not the player he was maybe, but he's still one of the best route runners in the game, and I think he'll be a great addition to this wide receiver staff. And I think it's a good chance he'll come here.
yeah, I agree. It's really a choice between Mac Jones and Tannenhill, which I will admit it's 50-50, but what Mac Jones has in his favour is he's a young quarterback. I know last year was mixed, but the year before his stock was climbing upwards. So I've more faith in Mac Jones having success than Tannenhill at this stage, and he's healthier as well. So plus you get to play with for Bill Belichick. So I think he'll be with Patriots, to be honest with you, and we will see.
You know,
Shout out to Alec who commented that
well,
I think that's an interesting thing. Do you feel like anyone will make way? Because I
my
know some people might look at would they move Parker, but I personally wouldn't, and I'd just keep the receiver core stronger.
they could it could be one of the kids that they drafted ends up being a victim here of this numbers game, but it could very well be Devontae Parker because of the money that he makes, and he just first of all he's not on the field enough, and when he's on there, he doesn't really make big plays enough like they thought he would. Um, if it was me, I would keep the kids if it comes down to that and dump Devontae Parker. Assuming that's assuming Taquan Thornton makes progress in training camp like they think he will, that Kendrick Bourne can get reintegrated into this offense a little better than he has or was last year. If all that comes to fruition and D Hop is here, then to me it's Devontae Parker. It's the guy that will ultimately be
That
gone.
that's what I would do for his number and his injury history, but it wouldn't shock me as Bourne was on the bad books of Bill. Would they move him or cut him? That wouldn't surprise me. They may feel as Thornton will take Bourne's role, so let's move him for a sixth rounder or whatever you can get him.
Possibly, and Alec talks about he'll take him back with the 49ers. I love Kendrick Bourne. He was very important to this team 2 years ago, and they just, first have put himself in the doghouse, and the other, I think a lot of the fact that Patricia just didn't really know how to utilize him
Yeah,
last year, and I think he's a good tool to have in the toolbox, and I would hate to see him go, especially given his comments recently where he's going to work harder than ever. He knows last year was on him. He wasn't blaming anybody like I am, or spreading the blame around. He blamed nobody but himself, and I think this guy offers a lot if they keep him around. That's the only reason I would choose Parker over him. Parker's just,
yeah,
again, he doesn't play enough for me either.
yeah. I do agree. And deep threats around the league, it's always hard to find. So when you've got one, but hey, I don't mean this offensively, but the Patriots ain't got such a good receiver core that you can throw a receiver away as talented as he is.
Well, that's a good point, but I've seen him get downfield and beat two guys in 2 years, so I'm
Yeah,
not excited about that part of his game either.
yeah,
But your point's valid. I mean, it's going to be a tough choice for them, and it depends. I mean, if Tyquan Thornton doesn't come along, it could be him. So who knows what they're going to do? But it'll be an interesting training camp if Hopkins comes in here for sure.
yeah, I do agree. Everyone be sure to check out Alex's show every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Let's talk flag football. He's had some really good guests. Actually, have to message you, Alec, later because a potential guest has emailed me on your behalf. So I'll drop you a line, but everyone check it out. Alex created a little bit of a niche. I've got some really good feedback from his content from the flag football community.
I got to check this out. Flag football, professional flag football over in the UK.
Well, most of it's obviously people have their day job, but he's had some Great Britain internationals, both on the men and the women's side, and um, some offensive coordinators from the Great Britain team, and some of his guests are British but played in America. So really good mix he had with Panama head coach on as well. So a good mix of guests there.
I see a fantasy flag football league in our future coming up.
I was going to say, don't rule it out, Keith. So, yeah, everyone check it out. Alex also relaunching his show where he looks back at the great games of your team's past, which I'm sure will get Keith involved with the Patriots at one point on a Sunday night.
Happy to do that anytime, Alec. Alec has really become a great follower of my shows, and I really appreciate that. And I want to. These guys all go so late in the night. No, I'm an old guy. I keep missing the shows.
I was going to say, with Alec, you'll be pretty much okay being in the UK. Doesn't generally do anything later than 5 p.m.
Oh,
Eastern time, so
that's
you'll be okay.
I'm still kind of half awake still,
Yeah.
as you can tell from your.
So, Keith, the Jets made another signing this week in Inks Packers Adrian Amos. What's your opinion on this? I love the signing. The signing come even more important when you find out Chuck Clark, who they traded for from the Ravens, has a knee injury. So whereas it raised some eyebrows because it seemed like they were three deep, but safety, it's more vital importance now because essentially he comes in and takes Clark's place, it would seem, for now.
Yeah, I would think this is a natural move for them. I don't know that much about Amos, and I'm sure we'll find out a lot about him here in the coming weeks. But you know, I think Joe Douglas keeps pushing the right buttons, and when somebody falls aside and he goes out and finds a decent caliber player to replace them. So listen, depth is important in this league, and there's very few teams that are that deep, and you got to be able to have next man up because everybody's going to have injuries, and you need to be prepared for it. We talk about it a lot, and so I think this could be an under the radar move that you may see pay off for them as the season progresses.
I agree. Very much respected around the league for a good veteran, good locker room guy. So that's what you get from him. We won't know, obviously, at his age, you never truly know until you get them in camp, see if their legs are still fine. But all being well, this should be at least a very good signing because the safety position was the weakest on the Jets' defense last year.
Yeah, and this is a good defense, and anything they can do to strengthen up the few weak spots that they have, just adds to the luster here. And listen, this is going to be a trendy pick, and they're going to have a lot of pressure on them because there's going to be a lot of people picking them to go a long ways this year. It's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah.
And from the outside, I don't want them to win because I'm a Patriot fan. But if I were somewhere else watching this team, even not as a fan, I think it'd be a very interesting progression to watch how this team develops this year. I do have a
I
question for you about
agree.
the Jets too. Before we get off the Jets, so let me remind me when you're done. I got a question for you.
Again, might as well that now fire
So,
away.
so you being a Jet fan, this week on First Take, there was a big. You may have seen this or heard about it that Stephen A. and Chris Russo had a big to do about. Stephen A. said if Aaron Rodgers takes the Jets to the Super Bowl and wins, he becomes a bigger icon in Jets history than Joe Willie Namath, which Russo took great umbrage with. And I kind of agree with him a bit. I think, Joe Willie's a bit overrated for his entire career, but he's one of the most important figures in football because he won the most important game in football history. So I agree with Russo here that he doesn't overtake Joe Willie in the Jets lexicon by winning one Super Bowl here.
I don't think he does, but he instantly becomes more or less on par with him, even if he played one season or whatever it is. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone can take away how legendary that speech was, and then they went and did it. However, then if you flip the question and say who was the best quarterback to play for the New York Jets, that's a different conversation.
I agree. Sorry, I'm laughing at Alex's comment there. Us old guys, they like to pick on us old guys apparently here in Let's Talk Sports. No, I agree. Listen, what Namath did is never going to be forgotten, and by Jet fans or NFL fans for that matter. That one game made him bigger than he ever would have been. If he didn't win that game, Joe Willie Namath is just another player. Quite honestly, he's not in the Football Hall of Fame. He's not anywhere. I know that's probably a little harsh for some Jet fans to hear, but he won the most important game in NFL history, and that's why he's as big a deal as he is today.
Yeah, I do agree. And some of his legend has grown just because how bad the team has been for
Good
so
point.
long. So there's been nothing to overtake him, is what I will say. Obviously, it was way before my time, so it's hard for me to say. But I've always been quite open with you and felt like it gains points for just having the sheer confidence to say it and then do it, but I don't feel he goes down. Like people say about Eli, is he a Hall of Famer? But I think Eli was a better quarterback than what Joe Namath was, personally
I agree
speaking.
100%. I agree 100%. Namath is important to the NFL and in the NFL Hall of Fame for a good reason. It isn't really the overall productivity of his career, though. It was for that one game, really, and he forced a merger basically. So, he's earned what he got, just in a
Yeah,
different way than
yeah,
Eli.
yeah. I agree.
You're right. The Jets
So
quarterbacks haven't really been Hall of Fame worthy since Joe. So
and I'll be honest, even if you lower the bar, how many have been Pro Bowl worthy? Not many.
he had a couple. Richard Todd had a couple good years. He got him to an AFC Championship game. Ken O'Brien had a couple of good years, numbers wise, never winning wise. Um, Mark Sanchez. So again, not much to work with there.
Yeah, I do agree. And I think it has to be said in those few years when Rex was there, if they had had the quarterback a little more capable, that team was far better than what they achieved, in my opinion. So I think a lot of Jets
You're
fans
right.
view it as a wasted opportunity.
He beat my Patriots in the playoffs one year with Mark Sanchez. So that was a good football team. That was a good defense. And Rex Ryan underrated as a coach because I think of his personality a little bit. I think he plays a clown a little bit too much, and I think he's underrated what he did with the Jets as a head coach.
Yeah, I do agree with that. So I got asked a question, Keith, on my last night's show about why aren't the Jets going harder on D Hop, and I think a lot of that is that they feel their receivers are set. Maybe they don't want the headache and need to put money in other places. Do you agree with that? I'm not even sure he considered them because I think if you look at the Titans and the Patriots, he wants to go somewhere where he's unpressured, the number one guy, and get his numbers, if you will. Do you think that's the case? And should the Jets have press harder? Am I wrong in that?
I don't think they should have pressed harder. I think they've got a very. I think they like their wide receiver room. I like their wide receiver room, and you're right about Hopkins probably needing to be the guy. And I think it's pretty obvious that Wilson's going to be that guy. Plus, I don't know that they've got the money to get it done. I think they've only got around $4 million in cap space. They could get creative, I suppose, but I don't think they're willing to take that on. And it doesn't mean Hopkins wouldn't be a good fit. I think they like what they have, and I don't think they want to upset the apple cart.
Yeah, I do agree. And from everything coming out, like Cole Hardman could be their fifth receiver. Cobb's going to be a bigger part than people think. So, the rumor around the Jets beat is that Denzel Mims is going to be cut.
That's interesting, and he'll get a job somewhere, but he just never met his potential here with the Jets for sure.
I agree. He got, as I said to Tanner last night, he got cut a raw deal. Look, he was never what maybe he's made out to be in the draft, but he come back and worked hard. But Mike LaFleur never gave him a chance. It was something he obviously didn't like about him. Because as I said to Tanner, I've never heard of a receiver having to know all three receiving positions. It
Hmm.
doesn't happen. So to put that as a stipulation, there was clearly a problem there. He wasn't even getting practice squad reps. The practice squad receivers was getting reps over him. So there was clearly something going on.
Yeah, that's not a good sign. I will make this prediction about D Hop and the Jets. If things start to go bad at some point, Rodgers will talk about the fact that they should have gone after Hopkins harder in the offseason. We'll see. A couple comments we missed that just so Alan is right, by the way. The merger was, I wouldn't say it was set in stone. It was on its way to being done, and the Jets winning that Super Bowl did legitimize the AFL, and also Kansas City coming back the year after certainly helped. So, but that doesn't change the legend of Joe Willie, unfortunately. Hello, Rick, and good to have you with us as well. Any guests lined up? But we're a little bit out of a hiatus because of my bandwidth situation with time, Rick. But we'll be getting back into that hopefully in July, right? If I remember our conversation right, Dan.
Yeah, so we've got that. We do, however, have five or six ready to
Yeah.
go. It's just they're confirmed and everything. So we will be hitting the ground running with that, and we will have a new list for me to work on. So while we've got those five in the can, we'll have some more great guests lined up. So stay tuned, Rick.
Won't be long, Rick. Thanks for staying on top of that, though. I know you enjoy those as well as other people. Rick's my number one fan when it comes to interviewing, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Rick, for always supporting, and yeah, always great to see you in the comments. Um, Keith, if we move to baseball, the big story in New York baseball is the Battle of New York. I said, um, Johnny and Rob and their Yankees show at the beginning of the week. I'm not sure either team deserves to win the Battle of New York 'cause it's more the toilet bowl than the Battle of New York. Um, how you feeling about New York baseball in general, Kev?
You said that before the series started. You said.
Yeah, yeah,
I think the two games bore that out. There were some that was some of the worst baseball I've seen all year. Those two games were just pathetic. Not just the Mets. I mean, the Mets played really bad defensively, pitching wise. I mean, they split the series, but both teams just did not look good. Again, just bad. They were bad in all phases of the game in my mind, and it's still a good rivalry, but neither one of these teams right now is really setting the world on fire. And ironically, the Yankees have a much better record than the Mets, but the Mets theoretically could, and Mets have more problems than the Yankees have in my mind. As far as there's no quick fix for the Mets. I know Alonso's out, so you get a little bump, but they were playing crappy when he was in the lineup. When Judge gets back, the Yankees are going to get a little boost there, right? There's no boost for the Mets. You can't. They're bad in pitching. They're bad on base running. They're bad on hitting. They can't fire the manager. There's nobody in the minors are going to bring up to give a big boost. They've already brought up their top kids, and I doubt they can make a trade that's going to really energize them. With all that said, they may be in a better position to make a wild card run than the Yankees because of the weakness of the competition that they're going to go up against in the National League. It's going to be much harder for the Yankees. We can't assume they're going to win this wild card because there's going to be 6 teams are battling for 3 spots, at least 6 teams, and they're all really good. And the Mets, I think, would have an easier time sliding into, say, the 3rd wild card spot in the National League than the Yankees would in the American League.
yeah. I agree. Look, maybe not this season, but I have more faith in the Mets reaching their goals quicker than I do the Yankees for one. But ownership, everyone could lose their job if the Mets don't pull their finger out. He's aggressive in every thing
Yeah.
he does, whether it's player recruitment or you can bet your bomb dollar he's making it clear it's not enough. If they can't do the job properly, then he'll find someone else, would be my hunch.
Well, I don't doubt that. I don't think he'll fire, say, Buck in the middle of the season, though. But if this season really goes in the tank and they finish, under 500, don't make the playoffs, then you're right. I don't think anybody's necessarily safe because he's not afraid to make a move. And plus, they're out there talking to. I can't remember who they were talking to. The GM they didn't bring in here, and before they hired Billy Epler, I can't remember now who that his name was. But they're already talking about other potential GMs, which is not a good sign for anybody if that's the case. So we'll see what happens there.
And also, it's not a good sign for Buck because if a new GM comes in,
he'd be out.
He won't Buck. Yep. To Rick's point, I saw this yesterday, and I agree with Rick's statement about him being an idiot, but also. What moron that the league approved this? Surely whoever rather stamped it. Look, Brown deserves the criticism, completely bang out of order, just poor treatment. But that being said, surely they should have put a roadblock on him making it happen. I don't know. In the UK with our soccer teams, we have a fit and proper owners test. I don't know if they have that in American sports, but if they don't, they should.
Not arena football, obviously.
Yeah.
And this certainly fits because this happened in Albany, New York. This is certainly fits our New York. Let's talk New York sports. Rick, we're going to get into this topic on Sunday, I think, in great detail. Just to get you up to speed a little, Dan, the Albany franchise here was years ago. It was Albany Firebirds, and they were a staple of the original Arena Football League. And AB's father, Eddie Brown, is a hero, is an icon here in the Capital Region. and his father has just got to be freaking like up at night seeing what his son has done. It took a long time. They left here. And it took a long time to get a franchise back. This franchise has been very strong. They were filling the arena. They won back-to-back arena bowls. And this guy comes in here and in a month, destroyed the entire franchise. They had 5 coaches in a month.
Also,
What a joke.
what he's done is ruined his father's legacy now when they hear his father's name.
Yeah.
All what they'll think is what his son did to a team. It is eclipse or kiboshed the entire legacy of his father. And it's hard to believe they let this happen. I can't think of someone who I would want to own a team any less if you hear about some of his past dealings, not paying shifts or masseurs, and if the rumours are true, getting physical with some of them. What in the league's mind let him take over this team?
Well, he was playing games too, teasing that he was going to suit up and play. Never suited up and play, but it put a few more thousand people in the stands, and you know, that's fraudulent in my mind. I don't think he had ever had any intention of playing. He was asked about it yesterday, and we don't have to belabor this point here, but he gave the most idiotic interview I've ever heard in my life. Just 2 days ago, before this, the league kicked him out, where they were asking him if he was going to play, and he said, "Well, you're talking to Antonio Brown, who's the wide receiver on this team, and it all depends whether AB, the owner, decides to pay Antonio Brown to play." And I'm like, "What planet is this guy from?" Oh my god!
All the videos from when he was at the Raiders should have told.
Yeah.
It shouldn't surprise you because it was beyond belief. I don't know how he stayed in the league after that. What makes it even more sickening is that he got a Super Bowl ring after that. So
Right.
it's
Right.
that can only have empowered him to do such things.
Agreed. And Rick, I promise you, we'll dive into this in a little more detail on Sunday.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's not many people like I just can't stand. He is one of
Oh,
them. I've always believed, whether it's NFL or NBA, it's a privilege, not a right. Just because you're born with a gift to play that sport, it isn't your right to play in the league. I think you should conduct yourself well, and he clearly doesn't.
he's had people at the highest points in this league, Tom Brady specifically, try to save his career and save him from himself. And all he does is go around and badmouth the guy. And
Yeah, I agree.
I have no use for this guy either.
I agree. And Mike Tomlin deserves a medal for keeping this under wraps for as long as he did.
Right.
However he is as a coach, he goes up a couple of levels because what it must have took to just keep this in house and no one go riff for it for as long as they did. I don't know how he did it, to be
I
honest
don't
with
either.
you.
I don't either. I knew when he came in here this was a bad idea. I had no idea that it could possibly implode the way that it did in literally a month's time.
Yeah, I agree.
Amazing.
So before we wrap up, Keith, what have you? I know you teased it there. Have you got anything else planned for Sunday? Any guests? I know Jim sometimes jumps on.
We will definitely have Jim in to kind of give us put a bow on the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs and talk about Peter Laviolette being named the new Ranger head coach, which I'm very happy about, and the Mad New Yorker is not. So that'll make for some good conversations down the road. And we'll get into Major League Baseball. We'll start looking at some of the All-Star returns. Maybe it's a little early. We'll start looking at possible trade chips with some of these teams as we start to head towards really that time in baseball where teams are going to start trying to make themselves stronger, or either be buyers or sellers. And there's going to be a lot of buyers and very few sellers, I think, in baseball this year.
I can't wait to discuss all that. Yeah, everyone keep an eye out. On Sunday on Mac's show, I know Keith jumps on, but I think I've arranged for Derek Brown, ex-New York Giant, to jump on with you guys. So everyone be sure to tune into that. Legend for Notre Dame. So very nice guy as well. I've worked with him a couple of times.
Good to hear.
I want to thank everyone for joining us today, commenting, whether it's Alan, Alec, Rick. Your comments help pace the show, help keep us ticking. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next Friday. And until then, let's talk sport, fans. Thanks for watching.
Have a good weekend.